I love movies that are psychologically frightening.
It's an atmosphere of tension and suspense.
It's about that strange area between dreams and reality.
We had the opportunity to read the others, and Tom and I loved it. Just loved the script. There was something very unique and something quite compelling about this film.
They wanted to write story in one single location with not too many characters about the kind of things I would be scared of. And surprisingly, I found myself going back to my childhood, where I was scared of very simple things like darkness or things that could be hiding behind the door.
I play an English woman who lives in this big house. She's basically surviving by herself with these two children, and her previous servants have left.
It's right the aftermath of World War II. She's been closed in this house because of her children's light sensitivity.
One of the sort of idiosyncrasies of the household is that for the sake of the children, all the curtains must be kept closed. Daylight must be kept out of rooms where the children are going to be.
She introduces them to the children, and then weird things start to happen.
She's very fragile, you know, she's highly strung. It's not just fear, I think it's a heightened emotional state. And she knows something has happened, but she's not sure what.
She's a woman who's been pushed by circumstance, you know, the minimal light and all the things that happen, and she can't leave the house. And she's a woman who's really been pushed to the edge.
She can be very strong, but at the same time, she can be very fragile, crystal, something that can be very strong, but that could break at any moment.
It's an amazing psychological journey that Nicole took as an actress, you know, where you see this woman who's trying to keep it all together and suddenly something happens and she just kind of, you know, lets go. And it's an amazing look inside the psyche of a character. And that's what great acting is.
I really was impressed by her performance in To Die For. What I saw is that she had this incredible energy, and she was able to really manage it. And all the subtlety of the character. And the first thing that impressed me was her eyes. I thought that in the past, in many films, I had seen her, but I couldn't see her incredible eyes, which I think it's very, very important for characters in general, and especially for this character who's trying to make out things.
I just thought, God, it would be a joy to be able to be in this film. Then I actually arrived in Madrid a year later to make it and went, I can't make this movie. I don't want to have to go to this place to play this woman and the things that she does. And so I kind of resisted it, which was perfect when I actually did start it, because I was so wound up about playing her. I was having nightmares and it had really seeped into my consciousness.
It was very, very hard for her to create a character who is most of the time suffering. So you as a director have to go with her in the nightmare sometimes. So what I just did was trying to make sure that she would feel comfortable, as relaxed as possible, and really being able to be the character.
I think it's a marvelous performance, and not very many Hollywood stars would have been willing to play a role that is problematic. I think it was brave of her, but on the other hand, I'm not surprised, because she really, I think, understands her instrument.
It's an extraordinary performance. It's a great character, and she's, I think, flawless in it.
She inhabited the character. She lived in the, you know, the skin of Grace. And Grace is a very different character from Nicole. And it's a real virtuoso performance.
I just think she's a great actress. And the character really, really became stronger and richer with her performance.
The two of us work really well together because I challenge him and he challenges me, and really this film was about the two of us working together to create this woman, because she's in almost every frame of the movie.
When we say action, we start this traveling, we are seeing no one but the stairs, and we hear them, dear Mrs. Mills. Yeah.
He's 28 years old, and yet he's a really confident filmmaker who's also willing to explore and evolve the characters, which is great.
Tom Cruise and I saw Abre los Ojos, and we were fascinated. It was an amazing film, and both of us loved his work.
He asked me if I was interested in producing this film for him, and I read the script and said absolutely. And I gave it to Nick, and you know, the rest is history.
I had seen both of Alejandro's films, Abre los Ojos and Thesis, And I was so impressed by the sophistication of his politics of life, his politics as a filmmaker. And I mean that in the broadest artistic sense. And his humanity to that, I thought was extraordinary. Naturally, you know, you want to work with directors who have that kind of courage and spirit and curiosity.
He really is a quintessential filmmaker in that regard, and somebody who has a vision of the whole, and that involves the music and the editing and the writing. And his films have a universal appeal to them.
To have the director who writes the script also writes the music, it's such a benefit. He would bring in stuff that he'd already been working on and play it during the scene. I'd say, let me hear the music so I can feel what you want.
He would hum behind the camera, behind the video assist. He would hum the music that he's going to have, and it's quite unique. I've never seen anything like it.
It's really useful because it helps me to set the tone and the mood of the film from the very beginning. And I think it's easier to connect with the audience.
The score enhanced the tension of the film. It heightened the emotion, helped kind of create the ambiance of your journey through this film.
I would say that the score is definitely subtle, and it's in the whole concept of the film. It's not a film about jumping all the time, but about feeling this whole atmosphere of tension and suspense. And the music contributes to that in a very subtle way. In this case, I wanted to keep some kind of naiveness in the music associated to the children, to all this childish world. And of course, it had to be creepy sometimes. You can find in the music these two sides. Part of the music is just there to scare the audience, and some other part to move their feelings. And I'm especially happy with all the adagios, which I use for Grace and the children. And I think that brings up another kind of emotion for the audience, which I think is very important. I do think that the film can be very, very scary by not using special effects, which is nowadays not very common, by having whisperings and by having silence, which is very important in the film. I think it's scary. That's the main achievement.
Just the way that he wanted to use the silence to play with the audience's emotions and curiosity.
I like to play with metaphors in my films, and in this case, this disease, photophobia, helped me to tell the story about how these children who live in this dark place discover something which comes from light. The main challenge was playing almost with darkness, because we didn't want to have a pitch black film, considering that it is a story about darkness. So we played with shadows and always simulating candlelight.
It's a dream for a cinematographer because it's so rich. The whole thing is a lot of the times lit by candles.
One of the things that I told to the cinematographer was light kills. And that's why you always can tell that light is trying to get into the house. This character is always opening and closing doors and playing with light as it was water.
The film is shot with the style that enhances the emotion of the picture. If you look at the production design and the costume, the wardrobe, the exteriors, the mood, the feeling, put all those elements together and something transcendental happens.
The house in the movie is so gothic and it's surrounded by fog, and the atmosphere plays a big part of this movie. It's so rich.
It only had key 7-8 characters in the film. Nicole Fionnula Flanagan, whom we know as an incredible theater actress and who's been in many great films before. The energy she brought to the film, along with Nicole, to play off the parts to each other. I mean, they had to really live in this world that we contained within this house.
It was my first time with children, and especially in English, so I was very, very scared at the beginning because I thought it would be much more difficult. So, you pretend to be a ghost? It would be great, Alejandro, if you just laugh. And then you decide to go to the puppet theater, okay?
I love working with kids because I have 2 kids. They're spontaneous and they're honest and they're fresh, and that's always a joy to be around.
The search went on for months. As our casting director, she would go to schools, playgrounds, camps, wherever she can find kids. And James we found right away. Alejandro took us a little longer to find her.
The casting director was working for almost half a year to find the girl, which was a very, very important character in the film. What we thought we would need for the girl was someone who would be able to face someone like Nicole Kidman and wouldn't be scared of her and would take the risk. And I think Alekhina was perfect because she's very honest and she's very strong. It was difficult because we had to find someone who could understand the characters and the script, and we had to make sure that these children would be smart enough, very, very sensitive, and that could really behave like brother and sister, and they really did. I'm very, very proud of them. What I try is to create a space for them to really feel the situations. Sometimes I try to scare them, although they were laughing all the time, and I think they really had fun with me.
Alejandro would get us sort of worked up or scared or sad. He'd either play music or when we weren't expecting it, if he wanted us to jump suddenly, he'd get Javier, he's the assistant director, to get two big wooden blocks and bang them together, and we would sort of immediately go like that because we weren't expecting that anyway.
Audiences have this ability to sense films that offer them something, that appeal to them, and they came and they were absolutely floored. People got much more than they thought they were coming to see.
The things that have always been important to audiences, a good story and believable characters, rather than how much money they spent on explosions.
I actually thought that the film would get lost amongst all, we opened against American Pie 2 and all this stuff, and I thought, oh well, we all worked really hard on it. It's going to be really sad that it doesn't do well. And then it just played and played and played, and it was one of those great surprises.
The end of a summer usually is a time where people have had enough of the popcorn movies and are looking for something more sensible and sane and intelligent.
We all know that movies spread on word of mouth, and the word of mouth on this film was clearly extraordinary.
It's such a wonderful premise, isn't it? You can follow the psychological patterns of this woman. I think that's really interesting.
It's a mystery story, that the mystery of childhood and the mystery of humanity and the mystery of who we are and what we know and don't know about ourselves.
You put all those elements together and something transcendental happens. It becomes something that you'll watch in 10 years and it'll have the same resonance. It's exciting when that happens.